to you? Do you remember
I
that?
think he just went white. So, wait a minute. Cut off my hair? What's he talking about? Why would... And I'm going, oh my God. All this drama and all this time, and he says no?
I had no idea who that kid was. Like, I didn't even know. He was like a nobody. Zach Ward was a nobody.
He's a nice kid. Good heavens. That's just a huge thing.
It's a heavy question.
Yeah, well,
Nobody. Zach Ward. Welcome back to another Major Award edition of Talking a Christmas Story with the cast. I'm your host, Yano Anaya, and as you may already know, I played one of the bullies in the movie. Look, behind every pint-sized little toady is a story of love, dedication, sacrifice, and a lot of hard work. And our very special guest today is a perfect example of all of these things. Today I'm going to be sharing an interview I did with my mother, Caroline. We're going to dive into the origin story of my role as Grover Dill, share some memories from the movie, and also talk about the perseverance and discipline it takes to raise a young child actor. I'd love for you to take a moment and picture this. It's 1975, right? So there is no internet. There's no GPS. You are a guardian of your daughter, who is actually a very famous actress already at 9 years old. And you have this 3-year-old on your hip that you have to take with you everywhere. Strollers, so on and so forth. Remember, there was no seatbelt laws back, or even child safety seat laws back in that day. So just picture this for a moment. You're on set one day because your daughter is working, and some director or somebody from behind the scenes comes out, maybe a producer or a set coordinator or something like that, comes out and says, "Hey, is anybody in the crowd willing to let me use your child?" And he actually looked around at me and he pointed to me and my mom and said, "Can we use him?" And she said, "Sure." So that's how I broke into the movie industry. I was chosen. And so what happened from there is my mom put me into acting lessons. I started to get jobs in commercials. And imagine the amount of stress that a mother goes through at now 2 child actors who are working a lot, juggling those times between jobs. So as you can imagine, back in the day, with the least amount of communication that you can have through moms, through producers, through directors, through casting agents, through managers and agents, this is the life that those mothers led. And we give them all the respect and love for pursuing their child's passion and careers. So there's going to be a certain magic in the air of the moms of A Christmas Story. The main character, Ralphie's mother, was the quintessential protector, always keeping a watchful eye on her adventurous son without a single show of force. She is somehow the character that makes you feel safe, that shows you everything will certainly and unquestionably be all right. Now, my mom, in many ways, mirrored that same spirit of being a quintessential protector, much the same way the other mothers did. Now, my mom showed up for me without fail, from carting me around to auditions to watching over me on set, no matter how bitterly cold the weather was in Cleveland and in Toronto. And just like Ralphie's mom, who seemed to know the right things to say, my mom had a way of turning challenging moments into life lessons for me. For example, the moment Bob Clark said I had a job if I cut my hair off, my mom was the epitome of positive, constructive support and taking action to getting me to agree to cutting my hair off. These life lessons we gain are those that we carry with us for the rest of our life. And in show business, much like in life, the support of loved ones propels us forward. My mother's unwavering faith and tireless efforts were the foundation that my success as a young actor relied on. So today, we celebrate the unsung heroes behind the scenes, our parents, who see the potential in us and help turn our dreams into reality. With no further ado, my mom. Welcome, Mom, to the show. Everybody out there, this is Talking a Christmas Story with the cast. For those of you who are not on our YouTube channel, you are listening in. This is my mother. I'm going to let her tell you her name, her age. But this is going to be an interesting podcast here. So go ahead and tune in. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I highly recommend that you go to our YouTube channel, watch this recording, because this is wisdom coming from the heart. So, Mom, welcome to the show. I do have some questions for you.
Okay.
So first of all, tell everybody what your name is and how young you are.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caroline. That's enough. And I am 91, I think. Is it 1 or 2? It's 91.
What year were you born in?
1932.
Okay. You guys can
It's a
figure
long
that out.
time ago.
Awesome. All right. So, as everybody knows me as Grover Dill from the movie A Christmas Story, having a childhood, being an actor, I wanted to ask you, how was it that you got into show business when we moved from Miami to California? And how is it that I ended up becoming an actor too?
Well, you have a sister who's a little older.
What's her name?
Her name is Katie.
Katie what?
Katie Kurtzman.
Okay.
And when we moved, from the very beginning, Katie was very interested in dancing, and she would go with me when I would take her older sister, Beth, to classes. Beth had an injury in her birth, and her legs weren't working right, so I had her doing a lot of physical therapy and dancing and stuff. But Katie was the one that took it on. Beth really didn't even like it much. But Katie took it on, and she was this little cute little movie star. She'd make things, look real cute. And so she wound up getting into show business, and she really, really liked it. And I always went with her when I could. I mean, I was working. I was a single parent at that time, so always working. So midnight shift, and so I always took you with us. So I had a push cart, and wherever I took Katie, you were going along with me, and that's how you felt perfectly comfortable in the environment. And one day, Katie was doing a movie. It wasn't a movie. She was doing some kind of filming, and the guy that was running it opened the door, and he looked around the room of the mothers waiting with their children, and he said, "You can talk to me." He said, "Can I borrow your kid?" And I said, "Sure, take him." So in went this one, who was in a push cart, and he went in, and so that was his first movie. But here's the trick. You can't be it wasn't a movie, actually. It was an advertisement for something or another. But the thing is that they couldn't publish it unless everyone became a member of, what's it called?
Screen
Actors Guild, right. So I had to take about $500, which was a lot of money then, take $500 and get you into Screen Actors Guild so they could publish their thing that they made. And that's how it happened. So you're still in the little chair. And as time went on, the, what do you call it? What was the lady?
You talking about the manager?
Yes, the manager.
Tammy Lynn?
I have trouble with my memory. Yeah,
Yeah.
trouble.
Tammy Lynn was our manager.
Tammy Lynn was the manager. She was Katie's manager in the beginning, and then took you in because you were on, and she started putting up you for other little ads where they had little kids, and so you started getting some experience. Commercials. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Started doing commercials, and it was all very cute, and Katie was very good, and we had a pretty good life, and it just grew right from there. Katie went on to be a well-known actress and has many, almost 100 different things. I mean, she's did many movies, and she's been a very successful child actress. But what happens, of course, when you turn 14, you're not a child anymore, and so they dump you I really shouldn't have said it that way, but it felt that way. They dump you and move on down to really children, like 8 or 9 years old. So Katie sort of faded out, much to her despair, and her bank account. And you just kept on working now and then. Not that you liked it, but you did it, and you made some movies, and you were very good, but you never really got into it. In fact, you were kind of irritated with me because you were missing baseball at school, and all the kids were teasing you, and you were caught between the possibility of being famous as a movie star when you were a kid, or going back to school and just playing.
Being a kid,
yeah.
Playing sports
and going to the beach and when you're supposed to be in school. Yes.
So let's kind of, as a child, having all those commercials, and I know that I can't even imagine being a single parent, which a lot of the fans know. I talk about it all the time that my father passed when I was about 5.5, 6 years old. So you being a single parent, working night shift, taking Katie on auditions during the day or even to jobs, and hustling me along with you. I want you guys to know that that takes a very strong person to be able to do that. And so she was very diligent and dedicated to her child's career because Katie loved it. And since I was the tag along, I happened to actually get a lot of work from that, which I was struggling with, wanting to ride my dirt bike and skate in the pools with the Pepsi team. And just so you guys know, Tony Hawk and Christian Hosoi were part of that team that I got to be with when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, because we had one of the most famous pools, empty pools in the Sacramento Valley back in those days.
We were living in the valley, and there was this pool in the backyard that was a pool like this.
It was 12 feet deep. It was round. It was perfect.
And it was
for
perfect.
Practicing.
However, it became famous because the skateboard kids found out about that I had a pool like that. So we emptied it.
Yeah,
so there's no water in it. Now these kids can all skate, and they all liked you and me and liked being there, and you made a lot of friends, and it was good experience.
Yeah, so being torn away from that, going into show business was different because it's a job, and it was exciting and it was challenging. And so we fast forward a couple of years to where I actually got my first audition for a movie. Now I'll never forget it because I remember coming home and you were excited about it, and you kept it on the message recorder because back in those days it was only the home phone. There were payphones everywhere, and I remember like putting dimes in my shoes and all that kind of stuff to make sure that I had to call to make sure I didn't have an audition before I went out and played. And came home, and you were super excited that you got a message from Tammy that I actually had an audition for my first big silver screen. So if you remember back, because I know that life was crazy and busy, but do you remember? Because of what I remember may be different from what your experience was. So
probably. And
I've told them a lot about what my first couple of experiences were about going to a cattle call and then going back on a callback and then going back for the second callback and finally meeting Bob, who was the director, right? And there was a couple of other producers in the room back in those days.
And not getting the job after all that hustle. Someone else would get it sometimes.
Well, yeah. See, that was the thing, is that going through all of that and not getting the job, right? So you were hoping that you would land the job because of the time and the energy and the gas and using this big atlas of trying to find out where you're going in Hollywood. Remember, there was no internet. There was no MapQuest. None of that existed. So this one here had to figure it out on a map. And then driving, experimenting with which way to go and what the addresses look like, the numbers on the streets, and, all of this, trying to get to an audition on time, which back in the days, when we signed in for the auditions, the only thing that I signed in was my first, last name, and my social security number was the actual way to sign in, which nowadays you never put your social security number on a piece of paper, but that's how they recognized who you were. So, that experience of taking me to the auditions, I'm sure, was probably like all the rest. But then the last, callback where I came out of the room, and I remember distinctly that Bob Clark, the director, came out and he pulled you aside to talk to you. So do you remember that conversation and all? Do you remember that taking place?
No.
No? Okay. So what I remember is that he pulled you to the side. Don't mind. We're in a remote location out in Hawthorne, Florida, and you're going to hear the train honking here shortly. So this is a treat for you guys.
There's
the train
right
going
along
by.
the side of the building.
Yeah. And so what I remember happening was Bob Clark pulled you to the side, and then he walked back into the room, and you came back to me, and you said, you have the job, but you have to cut all your hair off.
Oh, you didn't tell him that you had hair. Oh my God, you had the most
Oh,
beautiful
they
hair.
all know. They all know.
It was down here, and it was gorgeous, and it was wavy, and everybody loved his hair. And
so how did I respond to you? Do you remember that?
I think you just went white. So wait a minute, cut off my hair? What's he talking about? Why? I mean, I'm here, I'm thinking that you're thinking that here I am on an interview and they like me the way I am. So why would I have to cut off my hair? So you said no.
I did. I said
No,
way.
I'm not going to do this job if I have to cut off my hair. And I'm going, oh my God. All this drama and all this time. And he says no. Little stubborn little kid, I would feel like smacking you, but I didn't. Wise up.
So do you remember what you told me?
No, I don't remember what I told you.
Okay. So
I'm not sure I want to remember what I told you.
It was good. It was good stuff. I mean, basically, you said you can not cut your hair off and not have a home to live in, or just kidding. I'm just kidding. So you basically told me, cut your hair off. Your hair's going to grow back.
Yeah,
your hair will grow back.
What's his problem?
Cut your hair off.
Yeah.
This is a major movie. It's your first big film on screen. And so we had to have an answer to Bob Clark within the couple of minutes. Like, he wasn't taking a maybe. He wasn't saying that. He wasn't taking, I want to think about it. He was either, yes, Yano Anaya is going to be Grover Dill, or no, I'm going to choose somebody else. And so you were like, you're doing it. Like, it's happening. You're going to get used to not having hair for a little while, but it'll grow back. So I was like, okay, I stuffed down my frustration and my anger and my pain about losing my hair. And I said, okay. And so that's those moments of me becoming Grover Dill. And thanks to her.
Well, that's not the end of that story.
Oh.
We cut your hair.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, your sister cut your hair, but your other sister cut your hair.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut it. But it was not
Still too
all the way off. It was cut to here. So we went back again. They said, no, you're going to cut it all off. And he went, oh, Jesus. So anyway, it was a process. You cut most of it off and didn't get away, cut half of it off and didn't get away with it. So then they sent you to somebody who would cut it down to the skull. And that's just the way it happened.
Mm-hmm.
You were trying to sneak out of that.
So during the filming, while we were there, was there any specific things that you remember that made an impression on you, or still lasting, in your experience of the whole time we were there in Cleveland and also Toronto?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was not summertime, and it was cold. And we're from California, or wherever we were living. Yeah, we were living in California. It was cold. It was, well, I mean, it's just sort of, the mother is just there because she has to be by law. Mm-hmm. I really don't have anything to do with it except to be there as the parent. Mm-hmm. Have to be on the set when you are there on the set. You have to keep your eye on your child. You have to make sure the kid is doing what they're supposed to do and don't get sidetracked. The parent has to go to the school and get all the paperwork so you can go to school. You have 2 hours of school on the set by a teacher that they hire. And then I have to take all the school stuff and take it back to the school and show that you actually were there. And it was just the way it was. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it was. Mm-hmm. So I do remember being really cold when you were doing some of those scenes of running up and down the running up and down
The alleyway?
The alleyway, running up and down the alleyway and going up there. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm just shaking. And I didn't have a heater in the car. I had on my mother's old coat, fur coat, and I'm just shaking. And here you're going running up and down, and it's like there's nothing wrong. And I thought I was gonna anyway, but I was gonna die. I'm not from Canada. I'm not from those places. But anyway, I also remember that the other mothers, well, I never told you this probably, the other mothers were not friendly. They were very stuck up. And they had this child, and he was getting this movie. And they were just like super and had places to stay that had cost a lot of money. We're sleeping in it. Anyway, we were sleeping in an old hotel. And I do remember that there was not a sense of friendliness among the parents. They were really kind of, who's going to hear this? Who's going to hear what I'm saying now? Anyway.
30 million people.
Yeah, okay, well,
That's
30
okay.
million people. It was,
It's the truth of your experience. And
my
that's all that
experience
matters.
is that it was challenging. Now, there was one parent, you know, the kid with the red hair? What's his name?
Zach Ward.
Yeah,
Who was Scott Farkas?
yeah. She was really nice. She was nice, and it was nice to have somebody be nice, but then she had other things to do.
Yeah, she
So
was busy. She was a very famous actress as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
Now I know.
That she was busy.
Anyway, she was very helpful, and she was very kind, but there was not much opportunity for us to be together,
Yeah.
really.
Sure.
And anyway, it was an experience. I do just remember it was really cold, and I was really cold. But you did a good job, and you did what you did, and I was there, and that's the way it went.
Do you remember when we went to Niagara Falls?
Oh, very much.
Tell me about that experience.
Well, we had some time off. I don't know how we got there because we didn't have a car. We must have got a ride, but we decided to go to Niagara Falls because it was famous. And I do remember, I don't remember anything specific about it except it was just magical. We were right up there and it was booming down over, and it was intense, and it was very addictive. We didn't want to leave, but I do, and it was cold. It was still cold.
Yeah,
it was the water coming down. Probably the reason it wasn't frozen is because it's going fast.
Yes.
Anyway, it was an experience of going to Niagara Falls and having the noise, the sound of it was overwhelming.
Yes.
It really was. But we didn't stay too long because it was cold.
Do you remember the icicles hanging off the sides of the buildings, and the icicles on
yes.
the railings, and the icicles in all the bushes? It
That's
was like
right.
there was ice everywhere.
I don't know what the temperature was, but it was below zero.
Oh yeah, it was below zero.
It was
That's
like,
for
like
sure.
30, minus 32 or
Something like that. Yeah,
It was really cold.
especially with the wind chill factors.
And when those icicles are dangerous, they're like ice. I mean, they have sharp edges. They're like the size. There's.
So I'm gonna. That's great that you said that, because part of the movie is when Ralphie is daydreaming. He just got his BB gun, and so now he went out to the backyard to practice shooting at the bullseye. And of course, the entire time Ralphie's trying to get his BB gun or get people interested in getting him a BB gun for Christmas, everybody's telling him, "No, kid, just shoot your eye out." Right? So that's the whole thing. The whole premise is to shoot your eye out. And so what happens is the BB ricocheted off of the backboard from where he put up the target, and it smacked him right in the eye. So his first thought was, an icicle fell from the roof and hit me in the eye. And so for you to say that there was sharp icicles and they're very dangerous around is actually a very compelling reason as to why Gene Shepard wrote that into the movie. Because a lot of people that aren't from the Midwest or don't really know how serious that notion is, or that reality can be. I mean, we lived it.
Like a knife. It's like a knife.
It is like a sword.
Yes, it is.
It's a very sharp thing. So that thing that Gene Shepard wrote into the movie is actually very real. It's a very real experience. So I'm glad that you brought that up for everybody. Okay, so now after A Christmas Story, We all know that, when we wrapped and we came back home, for me, life was very different at school. Now that I'm known for doing a movie, even though the movie hasn't been released yet, it took a little while, several months for them to edit it and put it all together. And then when they finally did this, premiere, do you remember going to the premiere? It was I think it was the Man's Chinese Theater. I remember.
I do remember that. It was that old
theater down in Hollywood. Yeah. And the premiere, in my experience, was very, very cool, because now all of us, and remember I don't know if I ever told you this, but, when I got this movie, I was super excited to meet Scott Schwartz and Peter Billingsley, because they were already famous child actors. So I was actually working with kids that were already famous. And so for me, it was super exciting. Zach Ward, who, played Scud Farkas, I had no idea who that kid was. Like, I didn't even know. He was like a nobody. Zach Ward was a nobody.
He's a nice kid.
I'm just playing, Zach, I love you. So, but when Zach and I met, just like your experience with his mom, Zach and I became really close. We all became very close as we started to really, know each other on the set. But working with two very famous actors and then going to the premiere, I know that, Scott Schwartz, who was flicking the movie, lived in Jersey at the time. I think he may have moved to LA already. I'm not exactly sure where he was in his life at that time. But when we went to the premiere, it was like a red carpet event. It was super exciting. And I got to see myself on the big screen, which was so weird. To see me on a big screen. I mean, I saw myself so many times on TV, which was super exciting, to be chilling on a Saturday watching, cartoons. And for all of you youngsters out there, or those of you who are not Gen X or from my, generation, that's what we did. Is we were so excited to get to Saturday so we can watch cartoons starting at like 8:00 in the morning until as long as we possibly can go, until cartoons were over. But all of those Saturday and Sunday day specials is when those commercials just were like back to back to back to back. And so it was amazing to see all of my friends that I have made going on auditions my whole life on TV all the time, and myself. So that was super exciting. But now seeing myself on the big screen was like, wow, that was so amazingly cool. And then when it was released, it didn't do anything. Like, it got a bad rap. It just didn't do well. And so, of course, we were all like, oh, well,
I don't remember that.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
It didn't do well?
It did not do well in the movie theaters.
Not being a movie person or an actress.
Of course.
You
were busy in your life, and you were busy still, hustling around us and going
after
to auditions
school and all that.
Sure.
And so it was never.
It did not get a good rating.
I did not realize that those kids were also famous already.
Yeah.
They're just kids.
Of course.
So what do I know about movies? Like nothing, and except it takes a lot of time.
A lot of time and energy, yeah.
Energy to make it
so
happen.
Scott Schwartz had been in two very big movies, and then Peter Billingsley had a life, like we all did. We started very young, but he had already done a couple of feature films, like big budget films with Burt Reynolds, right? So I had
no idea. I wasn't even interested.
Of course you weren't. You were busy in your life, paying your bills and taking care of your kids and taking us on auditions. So. But for me, it was exciting because I kind of knew, who they were because I saw them on TV. So, after it was released, it didn't really do good because it was released the same weekend as Rocky 3. And Rocky 3 was a huge hit, right? So being released in November was kind of a hard thing to do for a Christmas movie because it was a little too premature. So it didn't get really good ratings at all. And it kind of fell to the back shelves until several years later, in like 96 is when TNT put it on TV. And we all know, if you guys don't know how that whole story transpired about how the A Christmas Story went from not being well or not being known in the nation to it actually being on TV, go back to watch the episode with Irwin Zwilling, because Irwin Zwilling is very close friends with Gene Shepard and was a huge A Christmas Story fan. And when Gene passed and Bob passed and it didn't really do good in the movie theaters, he knew in his heart that this movie was special, that it had a special message because of Gene's writing and because it resonated with people as what Christmas was really about. So he pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed with his resources and finally got the attention of Warner Brothers, who now owned, or it was MGM or Warner Brothers, I can't remember the exact. You can go back to the podcast and listen to the whole story, but he's the one that was the pivotal point of getting it on TV. So watch that podcast. It's a very interesting evolution of how, this movie actually got onto TV. And once it got onto TV, it just started to resonate. And every single year, like there was 3 movies, Miracle on 31st Street, A Christmas Story, and another Christmas movie that was showing on TV every single year. And A Christmas Story outranked all of the feedback or the ratings. Year after year after year after year, it kept increasing. And to this date, 40 years later, it's actually still increasing. So how this movie has penetrated the fabric of the United States was because of literally one person that really pushed and pushed and pushed. So we all have to pay tributes to Irwin Zwilling and that whole process of getting it to the TV. So after the movie, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I kept my career. I kept going. I started to get a lot of other work, and you kept you busy taking me on auditions. And I'll never forget the day that I read that message or listened to that message on the answer machine that I got an audition with Van Halen.
You couldn't have given you $1 billion and made you happy.
Oh my God, that was a dream come true.
You went nuts.
That whole experience from my perception, obviously is different from yours. So thank you for talking about it. So the parent's perspective, the parent of a star, child star. So what I would love, is I know that there's probably going to be a lot of questions that the fans would like to ask. So if you guys would do me a favor and comment below and ask questions, because I can always get my mom to respond, and I'll respond to all your questions that you may have specifically for her. And, we can revisit doing another podcast later. But what I would love for you to do, Mom, is she's 91. She's going to be 92 this year. Born in 1932, right during the Depression, in Compton, California, is where she was. You were born in, was it Compton, or was it?
I don't know. It was
South Central.
Yeah, it was someplace in Los Angeles. My
Angeles.
parents were still in school.
Yeah, so she was born in L.A., and then, of course, her father was a professor, so they kind of moved around to different universities because he is very intellectually inclined, and we could talk about that in another podcast as well, about her dad and my grandfather. But if there's one piece of advice, or a couple of them, in your mindset, what would you want to express to the younger generation? And the younger generation would obviously be my generation, Gen X, or you can even speak to your grandson's generation, which is my son's. Just top of mind, what would be, something funny or something interesting that you would give as a piece of advice to live by?
Good heavens. That's just a huge thing.
It's a heavy question, right?
Yeah, well, my attitude as a parent was to support the children in their strengths and discourage them in their weaknesses so that they would be able to create, as a children, the things that they need to move ahead on their own. So, Katie was a little actress, and we got her set up with that. You were following along with it, and it's not just the only thing in your life, but I'm missing a child. Which one did I miss?
Beth.
Oh, Beth, thank you. Never mind, I didn't. Anyway, she went on an interview with me to take you, or Katie, I can't remember which, and she hated it because they didn't. Anyway, she just didn't want to do it. She wanted anything to do with it, and so she wanted to build things, and so she's now a builder. And I encourage the children to do what they feel good about. and let them go. Support them and let them go. Unless, of course, it's something illegal, then you take a different But anyway, that never really happened for me, fortunately. So that's what I do as a parent, and I just encourage the children to take responsibility and do what they want to do, and don't be fooling around about it, take it seriously. If they have a talent, I mean, everybody has talents of various sorts, but they don't all necessarily fit for the circumstance or for the lifestyle or for other things. Just follow along something that has a future for you, something you really like to do. Make it happen and get your parents to support you if they don't.
Awesome. So what else would you tell the entire population about how to take care of yourself? Knowing your background, knowing your experience, as a matter of fact, if you guys don't know, my mom graduated from college in 1956 with a human nutrition degree. So she's been in nutrition her whole entire life. She's been a yogi for 40 years. She's been in the health and wellness industry, kind of like I am. She was my inspiration as a kid. As a matter of fact, she didn't start her whole journey until she was 50 years old. So, you can't use age as an excuse because she's living proof. So if you could, or actually I would love for you to kind of just give your heart as to what you would want people to know.
It's important to you to listen to yourself and not others. If you have desires and willings and have an idea, go for it. There are a lot of people that will put you into a lifestyle that really doesn't fit you just because they don't know any better or because they think it'll make you money or you'll do this. I just say listen to your children and encourage them to do what they want to do and help them find their path, and then let them go and let them do it. So, and that way you're a little freer. We're trying to get your
So
kids.
once your kids grow up and they're on their own, what would you encourage them to continue to do to take care of themselves the best way possible?
I don't understand the question.
So once your kids are gone, let's just say that you're speaking to your population, speaking to a younger population, what would you inspire them to do to take care of themselves?
Well, for heaven's sakes, take care of yourself. Now, what does that mean? That means that you are a being on the planet that has a history, and it does not include crap. The thing is that you are a human being, and there's a diet, for instance. This is what human beings have always eaten, and this is what they always eat. And then if someone wants to try to... I just don't eat commercial food. I don't eat stuff out of cans that somebody made so they could make a lot of money. I eat natural foods because I'm a natural human being. And natural foods are important. And then it's also important to take care of yourself as a human being. They sleep at night. They get up in the daytime. I'm not saying that that's wrong or bad because I've done things like that. But I'm telling you, if you work all night and have to sleep in the day, it just drains your energy, and it's too hard on you. You need to be a human being and take care of yourself like you are an animal. You're an animal on the planet, and be grateful. Grateful for the opportunity of being here and doing this. Take care of your children. Animals take care of their children. They don't kick them out so they can make money or stuff. They service their children and get their children to where they can be self-reliant. And then when everything is done, which is never really done, but there comes a time then you can sit back and relax a little bit and try some things that you might not have tried before when you were busy being a parent or busy being a wife or all of those things. Yeah, you're a very important person, and who that you are is what you need, what would be benefit if you took care of that first and foremost, and then taught your kids to do the same.
Okay, so outside of not eating boxed foods, chemicals, natural foods, meaning organic foods, lots of vegetables, proper proteins, what about exercise? Isn't that important?
Well, of course. human beings never just sort of sat around watching TV. They were out working their bodies. That's all part of the process. Yes, I've always been active. I can't imagine how boring it could possibly be to just like sit there and do nothing but watch TV or go make money doing. No, you need to take advantage of all your assets. You have legs, walk on them. You have arms, exercise yourself, get the benefits of exercise. I still ride my tricycle. The reason I ride a tricycle instead of a bicycle is because at my age, I'm afraid I'll fall. And if you fall when you're old, you're going to break something, and then it's going to screw up the rest of your life. So I don't do that. I have a tricycle, and I take it out every day, especially early in the morning. And I get at least an hour and sometimes an hour and a half of pedaling down. We have a lane or a path that we go into the woods and get some fresh air. And then I'll do that. And then I also, I teach exercise. I have since I was 70, and the kids were gone and I had my time. So I teach exercise, and it's been different kinds of exercise, but just exercising their body, taking advantage of your body that you have, appreciating it. And I don't eat crap, but you need to take care of yourself, and don't just do it because someone told you, here, eat this pill and you'll get more relaxed. Bullshit. No, I don't do pharmaceuticals. I do not do pharmaceuticals unless I'm sick, which is not very often. I've been sick once. I had the flu once back in my middle ages, and I took, that I will do. If I will, but so much of this is just all about making money. It has nothing to do with you. They're using you to make money. So take care of yourself, and you need to learn what to do. It doesn't come naturally to know and understand how to handle it. You're just a human. So you'll need to learn to read and write, feed yourself, and feed yourself good food that human beings eat and always have. And just take care of yourself as if you're a very special animal on the planet, a being on the planet, and live a healthy life. The rest of it will take care of itself.
There you have it, folks. Thank you, Mom.
You're welcome, son.
Can I have a hug?
Sure. Oh, there goes the phone. They're interrupting again.
Come back for more. Well, folks, that brings us to the close of another heartwarming episode of Talking Your Christmas Story with the cast. We've journeyed through the realms of my childhood dreams and the magic of show business, all anchored by the unwavering support of family. As we bid adieu, let's remember the unsung heroes in our lives, the ones who stand by us, cheer us on, and help us reach for the stars. Whether you're chasing a dream or supporting someone else's, never underestimate the power of love and support. Until next time, hold your loved ones close, and remember, you're never too old to dream.
Oh my God, I shot my eye out.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.